I frankly think that it looks like magic. I have so many Bible journaling ideas to share with you today. We're Bible journaling in a notebook, and I have something so fun to show you. I've been waiting all week to show it to you. Here we go, y'all. Well, hello and welcome to Pink Paper Peppermints. My name is Melissa and I am so glad you're here today. I have been waiting to show you this for so long. This is such a cool project. I can't wait to show you how to do it. I made a mini tunnel book with our prompt card for this week. Look how cute this is. It was not as hard as I thought it was going to be, a little fiddly, but you know, I avoided making one of these for so long, even though they looked so cool, because I just thought it seemed really hard. The hardest part is going to be measuring. We will have to measure, but it's not too bad, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to need to do is have some extra prompt cards printed out. Now, these are from My Heart of Thanksgiving Week 2. If you don't know what that is, I have a link in the description. You can go to that link, find out all about it, sign up for free, and get this starter kit in your email for free. So you're going to print out 5 copies of your prompt card, and you want to print that wood paper on the back as well. And then, of course, I should say 5 copies of the door part of your prompt card. And then your prompt card is going to be the back part. Now we're also going to use a Frixion pen, and these are heat erasable pens, which I'm kind of in love with now. Kathleen, who's on my team, showed me these, and I knew that you could use them for fabric, but they are so cool for paper because you can just mark up your paper and then you take your heat gun and just make it go away. So I'm showing you here that what I'm going to do is follow this line around the arch and create a pattern that I can then trace for all the other arches, because I want my arch opening to be the same through all my tunnel pieces. So that's what I've done here, and then I was going to just show you how the heat gun erases the pen, because I frankly think that it looks like magic, and I think it's really, really cool. So you can see that I've outlined the piece on this card, and I'm going to cut it out. Usually what I do is either punch a hole with a hole punch in the center or just make a little snip, and then I cut an X shape because that makes it a lot easier to cut out the pieces. So I just do like a little X shape, or I guess you could say 2 V shapes pointed at each other, and then you're able to go in and snip those triangles off and then just cut around your piece, and that makes it a lot easier to do that. So once you get the center cut out, you can then take your heat tool and go over where any ink marks are, and they just disappear. And maybe I'm easily impressed, I don't know, but I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, so now I've got all my tunnel pieces cut out. I've got my door there and then my prompt card. This is what we're going to use to cut out the accordion pieces, and this is just some blue solid paper that I got from the kit, and I printed it double-sided. The other thing we need is our pieces for inside our tunnel book, and this sheet of ephemera with the girl in the pink dress, I shrank by 77%, and then this girl with the pink dress that was in the top left there that I have already cut out, I shrank that one by 55%. And you might have to experiment to see what the right size is for you with your printer. The other thing is these envelopes, which are our participation prize for the live chat today. If you are in the live chat participating and chatting, there will be a link that you can download these envelopes for free as your prize. If not, these will be in the shop if you're not here. So I'm going to use that for the little castle pieces, and I'll show you that again in a minute. So we're going to do 2 accordion folds just like this, and I've written the measurements here, but I ended up needing it to be a little bit longer than it was, so you might need to experiment with this. What I would recommend is doing the piece longer than you think you'll need, because you can always cut off the excess. But what I've done here is 3 1/4 by 4 1/4 and then 1/4 inch folds. And then I would highly recommend using a scoreboard to make those folds, because you really need them to be crisp. And we're working with, I don't think I mentioned this before, we're working with either cardstock or at least 48-pound double-sided photo paper, because you want this to be pretty stiff to hold your tunnel book in place. So I do recommend scoring it so you get those nice crisp folds. So how this goes together is you wrap that first piece around the back of your prompt card, then you fold over the next piece and put your first tunnel card down, fold it over again and put your next tunnel card down, fold it over again and put your next tunnel card down, and you're always gluing to that back part of the fold. And then you just want to make sure that you're keeping it even along the bottom and the sides. And then you can do one of two things with this flap that's at the end. Mine's a little short because I didn't measure right. You can wrap it around and then take one of the other tunnel pieces, or rather cut a new tunnel piece and lay it across the top. I didn't want to cut another piece, so what I did was just cut that flap off. And so what you'll need is then you need to make sure that you have 5 of those folds, or 10 accordion folds. So you see how I'm doing that here. I'm laying the tunnel piece down, folding it over, laying the next one down, folding it over, and then you end up with that last flap at the end. And then we're just going to add our glue to those back flaps and then add our pieces in. And again, you see how I'm standing it up? I'm just making sure that it's flat along the bottom, and you want to keep each one of those tunnel pieces needs to be even, especially on the bottom, so that they stand up properly. And then I'm just going to cut that extra little flap off on the side. So before we do the other side with the accordion fold, I want to go ahead and put our little pieces in. You can see I've cut out all my pieces here that I wanted to use, and you don't have to use the same pieces as me. This is just going to be experimental. You're going to have to see which ones you like and which ones fit and how much you need to shrink them to get them to fit in. But this part we're just testing to see where to put them, and I was trying to be careful because I didn't want to cover up my verse that's in the center of my prompt card, although you don't have to be too careful because when the tunnel is fully open, you can kind of see around and behind the pieces. So right now what I'm doing is just testing for placement and seeing how much of that castle that I might need to cut off. I left some extra on the left edge so that I have room to play with how far I want it to stick out, and so I can see that I need to cut some of that extra that I left on the left edge off, and so I'm doing that and testing the placement again. And then the next thing I'll do is put my next layer in. I think that I might need to cut off some of that grass, but I want to put the girl in first and just see. So then we're going to move to our next tunnel piece, and we are going to put her on that next tunnel piece. And at first they're going to be flat because I'm holding them together so they don't all fall out. But once we get them glued in, that's going to create layers in between these two pieces. So now I'm just moving her around to see where I want her in front of the castle, how far I want her, how high up I want the castle. And I'm just going to play with these pieces like this until I get them in the right space, in the right order, and then I'm going to glue them down. So they're not glued down yet here. I just wanted to show you how they look, and I'm holding them together just so that I can make sure they're where I want them to be. And then I'm just going to take the tip of my glue and insert it in there, kind of keeping them in place. And I'm just putting a small dot at first so that I still have a little bit of wiggle room so that I can move them around if I need to. The only thing that you need to be cautious of when you're doing this is not putting the glue in the wrong place and ending up gluing the tunnel pieces to each other so that they don't pull out. And I actually did that. That's how I know. So I'll show you here in just a minute. So I've got all my pieces glued in, and you can see that's where I accidentally put the glue in the wrong place and glued the tunnel pieces together. So I had to pull that apart. Fortunately, it doesn't show when it's closed, but you just want to be aware of that you don't want to get that glue anywhere but underneath your pieces. Now for the other side, we're going to need to go ahead and add our accordion fold to the tunnel pieces before we put our little princess and everything back in there. So that's going to make it a little tricky on that side, but it's not too difficult. So I've done that here. I've glued that accordion piece in just like we did the other side. And now it's time to add my pieces. And this is the castle piece. And I'm going to do the same thing I did before. It's just that I have to kind of work through the center and pull up at the top and kind of slip it in there and hold it together and see where I like the placement. And so it is a little bit more fiddly than the other side, but it's not that difficult. So then I'm going to add my princess in, and again I'm going to place her in and just see about the placement. I realized that I needed to cut some of that off because she was sticking out too far, so I'm cutting off that side piece a little bit, and then I'm going to place her back in and glue all the pieces down. So once I get that done, I've got all the pieces in now, and I added my little peacock and my word art on the front. And now it's just time to add my fold down drawbridge door. So we're just going to take that flap that's on the bottom and we're going to glue it in place underneath that first tunnel door. So right between the accordion fold, and you can see I glued it a little too much on the right there and I had to tear it off so that I could fit my door in. So just try not to put your glue all the way to the bottom, and you're going to add that piece right in between those two pieces. So once that's done, I'm ready to put it on my page, and I've created a base for it here. Just like last week, I used that silver fleur-de-lis paper, and I added some brads in the four corners with a little bit of glitter on them and some ink around the edges. I added a glittery tab to the top of my drawbridge door, and I want to put my book down, but I don't want to glue it to the page. I want to be able to open it and take it out and look at it. So I'm going to instead glue the ribbon to the page, and I'm just checking for placement here to make sure I've got the ribbon in the right place. And I'm going to glue the ribbon down to that base, and then I'm just going to tie the book in with that ribbon, and then I'll be able to remove it. And there is our little book. I think it is so much fun. I love the way it turned out. I really want to do another one, although it's kind of like childbirth. Like when you're in the middle of doing it, you're like, I don't know if I'll do this again. And then later you're like, oh, it's so cute. So I may do it again if I get further away from the process. I don't know. We'll see. So let's move on to the next page. So what I'm going to do here is I am adding some stickles to this piece of ephemera that is a sword. I wanted it to be super sparkly, and so I'm just taking a foam brush and dipping it in and pressing it down into the sword until I get it mostly covered, and then I'm going to dry it a little bit with my heat tool. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the piece of armor, the breastplate. I'm just brushing that stickles glue on, and that's going to be super sparkly as well. So now what I want to do is create a skirt for my little piece of armor here, and I'm just taking different pieces of sheer tulle and ribbon and different things, and I'm going to twist them all up together at the top and sew them with my sewing machine. Now you could also wrap some embroidery thread around and just tie it, or you could use glue. There's different ways. You could use washi tape if you don't like to sew. I like to sew because it's very quick and I know that it's going to hold securely. So while I was working on that, I started to think that I wanted this to be a double page spread instead of just the single page. And so I decided instead of putting it here, I was going to use the giant journaling tag here. We're doing the armor of God this week, so I thought that that lady with her armor on her horse was the perfect thing for this page. And I just clipped the flash tab there that says steadfast and added some gesso. That was our prize last week. If you didn't receive that one, then it will be in the shop. And now I'm back to my armor. I'm going to do a double page spread instead. And I've got these vintage velvet leaves from that I used last week as well. And I'll put the link to those in the description. And I wanted to put those kind of as a waistband on her little skirt. So I'm just kind of playing with the placement there for that. And I'm going to attach them with just some washi tape on the wire part in the back, and then I'm also going to glue them afterwards, but I'm just using the washi tape to kind of hold them down so I can get them in the right position. And then I'm adding the skirt behind that, and I've got some word art that I actually took from the mini book kit from this collection that I'm going to add there with my sword. And then I did this piece to go on the other side, and I want to show you how I did this. It's embossed on the outside and no embossing on the inside. And the way that I did that was I took the embossing folder and put the paper in, and then you take a shape and cut it out of some cardboard, and you'll have to experiment with the size and your machine, and you put that on the outside of your embossing folder, and then you run it through your machine. And when you do that, there's no pressure in that center area because of the cardboard. And so it creates this empty space in the center, which I think is perfect for journaling and all different things. I just think it's a really fun technique. I just started playing with this, so hopefully I'll have some other ideas for you soon, but I really, really like that. And I suggest that you try it if you've got embossing folders. It's just a fun way to do something different with them. So I cut this lady out of one of the journal cards, and I wanted it to be like she was sitting in the window. I've got this vintage velvet leaf that I'm putting at the bottom, and I cut that word out from the faith phrases, so those are from the Clip and Collage collection. And I wanted to add some typing to the window before I attach my leaf and this lady to the card. I want to type a sentiment in the little window area right there. And so I've done that here, and my typewriter went a little wonky there, you can see, but I decided that I don't mind. I'm using a broken China marker. It's a kind of an off-brand. It was really cheap, and I will not be buying that again. I'll go with Sharpie from now on. But I wanted to go ahead and use it since I still had it. And I'm just doing a white edge around the window to kind of make it stand out a little bit. And then I'm also going to do that around my girl. And then I'm going to layer some pink ephemera underneath at the top there and put my pink vintage velvet leaf at the bottom. And I'm trying to create kind of a visual triangle of pink to draw your eye across the page. And then I'm going to glue everything down. So I think this is one of my favorite pages that I've done so far. I've showed the armor dress to my husband and he said, wow, intimidating and yet also beautiful. So I think that's why I like it. So I wanted to show you something else, and that is my charm that I've added to the side of my journal. I'm not quite finished. I want to add some more pieces to it, but what it is all the pieces of the armor, and I will link the shop that I got this below, but I really, really love it. All the pieces of the armor of God. I got one of these for each one of my team members as we are going through this adventure this year, and I think that you would like it too. So I wanted to show you one spread that I did last week that I didn't do on camera, and that is this one. Our theme was rested last week, and so I used that flash tab, which was one of the prizes. It'll be in the shop if you didn't get that one, and a giant journaling tag and some of the ephemera. And then of course these are the pages that we did today. Well, if you enjoyed this video, I hope you will consider giving it a thumbs up and maybe sharing it with a crafty friend. I've had so much fun with you today, and I can't wait to show you what I have for you next week. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that you have a week filled with peace and grace, and I will see you next time here on Pink Paper Peppermints.